Hey, good morning. What are you doing? You don't have to answer that. As you can see, I'm growing my winter coat. I'm going on a drive here this morning to go get some breakfast. I want to take you along with me. Don't stop the video yet. I got some interesting things to talk about. Stuff that I'm taking a closer look at. Haunted attractions, historic old buildings, an old church, a beautiful neighborhood that recently won a fight against a developer, and even an old tree. And one is going to be about my neighborhood, but here in a minute though, just to get it out of the way, up the road is something I'm going to lead up to. When it comes to Tennessee, which I moved to back in the 90s, I've never seen a place that had such an infatuation with haunted attractions leading up to Halloween. I mean, East Coast, West Coast, Texas, Hawaii, overseas, I've never seen any place that had such a fascination with haunted attractions. The first one I went to here was back in '94 at an old mansion called the Halfway House, because it was located halfway between Nashville and Gallatin. It was a vacant 200-year-old mansion in Hendersonville, Tennessee. In its waning years of the 90s, I guess some folks leased it to make it into a haunted attraction. That historic but dilapidated mansion's demolition seemed imminent due to commercial development interests. A group stepped up called Friends of Halfway House to try to save it. Sadly, it suspiciously caught fire and burned down in 1999 during a thunderstorm. Local talk said it might have been actually due to arson, committed during the thunderstorm to make it look like the fire was due to a lightning strike. Here's what that property looks like 25 years later. That development never happened. It was very suitable for the haunted attraction that it set up shop in it. And I've been through a couple other haunted attractions here. There's always something each year leading into Halloween, whether they be in an old strip mall, whether it's in a business park, or the most recent one that's set up here is the old Starlight nightclub in Nashville, Tennessee. And amazingly, these places wear their facade all year round, sitting empty, not being used until the magical time comes around to open them up, and then I guess they rake in the money. Those places were located in Hendersonville and Nashville, about 10 to 20 miles south of here. While these people up here on my road had a better idea by setting something up in the woods on their property. And here, we're coming up to it right now.
Have you seen my dog? Please, won't you help me find my dog? I can't get back to Kansas without Toto.
What's your name? Don't answer me. Well, you must not have a brain, do you?
You take cash or debit?
Cash or debit? I take limbs, girl. Which way do you think you're going? You know you're going the wrong way.
Listen, you will have a whole lot of good times. Hey, you need something? I might be able to dig something up for you. Tell me your name!
Yeah, people used to come from all over to go through this, even out of state. It is highly reputed as one of the best Halloween attractions in this area. And sadly it's gone, but hey, we're done talking about Halloween now. It's over with. I think this fella on the left needs to build him a few more sheds. Yeah, this little turn here, I always prefer turning to the right because it's very much like driving through a state park on the way into Goodlettsville. But I'm turning left today. I remember back in the day, I used to complain about my hometown because people didn't drive the speed limit around there. They drove slower. Well, that's a rare problem around this place because usually here, they're right on your tail trying to get you to go faster. Something I was going to mention about my neighborhood is the fact that obviously you can see I'm in a rural area. Well, out here is very diverse. As you've already seen, nice homes next to mobile homes, 1 to 2 acre lots located next to 20 acre properties. Heck, that Monster Mountain property back there is nearly 50 acres and, according to tax records, is owned by a family whose last name is the name of the street. How often do you live on a street that's named after a neighbor? Compare that to living in the city. In the city, well, you want your curb appeal. You have your neighbors. You have the people across the street. You have the street next to you. The houses behind you. You have your rich parts of town, many middle-class neighborhoods, and you have your poor parts of town. And you have everything close to you for shopping purposes, for dining out and whatnot. And obviously that's not the case here. For instance, right now I'm driving 10 miles down windy country roads just to go to Hendersonville to go get my nearest Chick-fil-A breakfast burrito. The same drive would be necessary to reach my nearest hospital. But I have at least 3 cities within a dozen miles of my house to go grocery shopping, all while dealing with only a few traffic lights and far less traffic to contend with than if I lived in the city. I guess it could be worse, and I get to enjoy far better scenery. This is unusual. I wonder what they're doing. Oh, and I have $4 general stores ranging from 2 to 8 miles from my doorstep. So there's that. There's even someone living in a camper along the creek that's just a hop, skip, and a jump from a 6,000 square foot place which sold for $2.1 million 3 years ago. It's a beautiful country out here. And you want to talk about curb appeal? These folks, they obviously have a lot of grass to mow. A big yard. I don't know what you want to call that. Now I'm on what's called Hogan's Branch Road right now. I'm coming up on a road called New Hope Road. This is in the Shackle Island area, an unincorporated community in here north of Hendersonville, Tennessee. And I remember 4 years ago, I was coming up on this intersection and, I couldn't get on the road. I had to turn around because there was a bad fire. What had happened about a quarter mile up is a man named Ray Pennington, who owned 24 acres, I think, had a fire out in his garage due to his golf cart. And he went out to try to address the fire, do something about it, and got overtaken by smoke, and sadly he had died. His wife came out, she couldn't get near him, and so there was nothing she could do. And being that there's no fire hydrants out here, the fire department had to set up a device that had to bring water in and dump it into this thing so they could pump the water out in order to extinguish the fire. Here's a quick trip I made to Mr. Pennington's place on a different day. Ray Pennington was a country musician, songwriter, and a producer, the latter of which included a production credit on Hawkshaw Hawkins' final album, Lonesome 77203, on one of the first albums to feature black and white session musicians. He had established his Nashville country music career in the 1960s. He first recorded Ramblin' Man in 1967 for Capitol Records. His version rose to number 29 on the charts. In 1974, Waylon Jennings scored a #1 hit with his version of that song. Papa Ray also co-founded Step One Records, which released albums and singles by Ray Price, Kitty Wells, Farron Young, Hank Thompson, and my friend from when I was just a teenager, Curtis Potter. Ray's friend said,
he always talked about that song Waylon Jennings sang for him. He said that was his money-making song, but he wrote a lot more songs than people know of. He had a farm just right past my house, and we lived on the same side of the road. A lot of times he would go over there just relax. You could go to Ray's house anytime, and you would be welcome, and he said you could do anything you wanted to. They were just good people. I mean, Ray was just one of the best friends you could ever have as a person.
Ray's former property on the east banks of Drake's Creek was eventually sold off to a developer. Aptly named in his honor, the property Pennington Farms was parceled out into some well-to-do estates which are still being developed as of this video. Let's now return to my regularly scheduled trip. I'm now on Tennessee State Route 258, which starts behind me in White House, Tennessee. This highway is locally known by 4 names, depending on where you're at. Yes, this road changes names 4 times in its 14-mile stretch. That's a typical Tennessee thing for you. Right now I'm on the New Hope Road part. After driving south through Putlet Hollow, it becomes New Shackle Island Road at the Long Hollow Pike intersection. Then stays that way until it ends in Hendersonville. Why it's called New Shackle Island Road is because, well, there is an old Shackle Island Road too. This is Latimer Lane, obviously named after the Latimer family, or perhaps Bessie Reed Kirkpatrick Latimer. She was born in 1889, and she suffered a horrible tragedy that no mother should ever experience. One rainy day in 1927, while returning from the schoolhouse in her wagon, 4 of her children were swept away and drowned while trying to cross Drake's Creek. All right, a little bit more about Shackle Island, and I'll get up here and I'll show you a few other things. Just to explain where I'm at, I found this colorful Tennessee map to zoom in on thanks to the interweb machine. The community of Shackle Island is located north of Hendersonville and centered at the crossroads of Long Hollow Pike and Highway 258. There are various stories about how Shackle Island might have gotten its name. The generally accepted story is that a man named Shackle operated the grist mill on the creek for William Montgomery, a man who I'll speak more of later. Mr. Shackle lived near the creek, so a small island near his home came to be known as Shackle Island, which is depicted on this 1878 map I have here. However, there's barely any hint of that island on modern maps. Another possible name source is that there was a shack on the island where you could buy whiskey, for medicinal reasons, of course. Even when whiskey was illegal, people would say things like,
You want a whiskey? The shack will hook you up.
and shackle became shackle. Did you get that? Some things that fascinate me about this area, with the population just shy of 3,000 as of the 2010 census, many families still live here whose ancestors settled this area before Tennessee statehood, some of whom had fought the American War of Independence from 1775 to 1783. Shackle Island's original church congregation was Beach Cumberland Presbyterian Church, organized in 1798 and still exists as the oldest church in Middle Tennessee. A couple of points of interest up here. I'll talk about each one separately. One of them is going to be its old brick, the oldest house along this road. Old Brick was built by pioneer William Montgomery, who came to this area from Pennsylvania by horseback in 1782 to 83. Montgomery was authorized to make surveys for the government. He took much of his payment in land grants, which eventually expanded his property ownership into a 6,000-acre plantation stretching from St. John's Church up to Tyree Springs. He built on the property a grist mill, a distillery, and a lumber mill. He also built the home. William Montgomery fashioned the home after Pennsylvania houses of the time. The home was completed in 1804. The bricks for the house were made from native clay on site and were fired by slaves. A man named Robert Taylor completed all the magnificently intricate woodwork, including a small cabinet built into the wall where mail was kept for the community from 1828 to 1867. Upstairs were offices where Montgomery's sons practiced medicine. The contract between William Montgomery and Robert Taylor for building the old brick house has been preserved, and a copy hangs in the historical room at the nearby Beach Cumberland Presbyterian Church. The church where William Montgomery had given land in trust to build a place of worship and for an adjoining cemetery. That cemetery is the final resting place for Mr. Montgomery, Robert Taylor, and many of their family members years since. The old brick remained in the Montgomery family for 136 years. It's been sold twice in its long history and has been owned by the same family since the 1940s. Needless to say, the original 6,000 acres have been sold off through the years. The present owners of the house still have claims to about 100 acres near the house. Getting right across the road from it, it's a place that I've actually had visited a couple of times on property, called Greystone Mansion. This federal-style limestone masonry house was constructed by Colonel Daniel Montgomery, William Montgomery's son. It was built from stone taken from nearby land between 1830 and 1832. There are dates carved in the basement and on the eaves which attest to this. As with so many other historical Shackle Island homes, Robert Taylor did the carpentry work. It was referred to as the Daniel Montgomery House, but later came to be known as Greystone. The property remained in the Montgomery family for several generations. They often rented it to families for farming, including ancestors of the family which presently owned Old Brick. In addition to the main house of Greystone, there are 215 acres of multiple terrains ranging from low-lying and flat fertile pastures to rolling hills, with over a half-mile of frontage along Drake's Creek. Some of the richest soil on the farm could be found where there once was the previously mentioned island between the split and Drake's Creek. As of today, there's also a tenant house, a horse barn, tobacco barn, and a stocked pond. A retired World War II veteran and U.S. Air Force colonel and his wife became the fourth owners of the house in October of 1948. After his passing in 2001, his sons kept up the expansive property for their mother. Now, I never actually went inside the Greystone Mansion. For that matter, I never met the owner. My reason for going there was because she had rented her tenant house back in the mid-2000s to my dear lady friend at the time. During my numerous visits there, I met several of the owner's sons. One told me an interesting story passed down to him, stating that during construction of the house by the Montgomerys, they had to fend off Indian attacks from the mansion's rooftop. Indeed, I found several credible sources stating that the house was built upon the site of an old Indian mound. The son also told me that they came to detest raising cattle there because their father was killed by one of their bulls. Well, I can't remember ever seeing any cattle when I was there. Their mother passed away in late 2008 at the age of 89. As with any 19th century home still in existence, some renovations were necessary through the years to modernize it for indoor features like the kitchen and bathroom. When it was sold to the newest owner, it was a modest 5,560 square feet. The new owners went way further by expanding the house to 11,700 square foot estate. They used materials salvaged from the nearby 1780s vintage Kirkpatrick house, which had suffered from decades of disrepair. The new owners also made several acquisitions of adjacent land area to now have a total of around 444 acres of farmland. Yeah, so Old Brick and Greystone were two of the 6 properties comprising the Shackle Island Historic District, which was listed in 1978 by the National Registry of Historic Places. What's noteworthy was that most other historical Sumner County, Tennessee locations were and still are generally open to the public to some capacity as landmarks for learning local history. These Shackle Island properties were still in use for their original intent. In 1978, 5 were still occupied as dwellings, and the church was still an active congregation. As of today, that has changed some. 2 properties were lost due to the ravages of time. As of January 2024, the Taylor Montgomery House is now advertised as a place for hosting special events. And then right past all this is going to be Worson's Market. Well, while I'm waiting for traffic here, let me talk about that place. Robert L. Worsham Sr. opened Worsham's General Store in 1901, selling food staples, plows, and merchandise of all types. At one time, it also served as the local post office. During all these years, it came to be a place of congregation for many of the community to get together, visit, and enjoy a nice hot cup of coffee and freshly baked biscuits. R.L. Worsham Jr. took over 26 years later. He ended up purchasing the building in 1937, along with the house just across the street. In March 1952, a Drake's Creek flood turned the building around 90 degrees. After a month of cleaning, jacking the building up, and adding concrete blocks for a foundation, the store reopened for business. Otherwise, the store remained where nature placed it for the next 56 years. The store was added onto and slowly evolved into a modern-day gas station and convenience store. R.L. Worsham III, known as Bobby, took over in 1977. Fire destroyed this unique piece of history in 2008. It was rebuilt with a modern building. The original store's sign was salvaged from the fire's refuge and hangs inside on the wall of the new building. Then something great happened 11 years later. I'll tell you what, let me just go there walk in and show you.
And we're here today to celebrate a $198 million Powerball jackpot winner. So Bobby here is our first recipient of a $50,000 bonus for selling a winning ticket. So that's exciting news for Bobby. So they've been here in business for 118 years. The fourth generation of the Worsham family is right back there behind the counter. This is the third generation, or yeah. So he has grandchildren who are working back there, and we're going to present you with this, which you can frame on your store or hang up here. But what's most important is this one.
Oh,
You might want to open that and look at it, so you'll know it's real.
oh, that's tremendous.
Don't I get a hug for that? Congratulations. Good day for you and a good day for students. And a very lucky day for someone who may live very close to here.
Yes, that'd be great.
Bobby, do you mind just talking about how it feels holding that check in your hand?
Well, it feels great because I never thought it would happen. Even in our area, most of us here in Hendersonville, Shackle Island, we like to be known as Shackle Island. My grandfather used to say, he put on his stationery because his granddaddy had a store here in Washington, Tennessee. He didn't want it to be Shackle Island, so he put Washington, Tennessee, Hendersonville Post Office. We had a flood in '52 that turned the store around, put it out of business, and had to fire it. So I always said we were like, what's the singer? I've seen fire and I've seen rain. I said I need a t-shirt because we've had to come back twice. Yeah, this is a great thing. Great thing for the store. Great thing for the community. We appreciate it.
Just kidding. I wasn't there for that event. It was live streamed on Facebook July 19, 2019. I did so happen to get me some fresh biscuits while learning that Bobby had sold the business and had retired. All is well, though. He and his family are much deserving of that $50,000 reward and the much larger amount to receive for that sale of the business.
I am on the battlefield for my Lord, for my Lord. I am on the battlefield for my Lord. I promise him.
I have driven past this church hundreds of times. For whatever reason, I always look over at it. Maybe it's a big sign that says, "Go fish." The inscription below refers onlookers to Matthew 18, verses 19 and 20. For most of its years, the church's baptisms were conducted in the nearby Drakes Creek. Still today, a Drakes Creek baptism is a tradition that stretches back to when the land was part of the Hunter Plantation. The people who were enslaved here used this very spot to worship and perform baptisms because then there was no building, just the rock and the creek. The land for the church was purchased in 1891 by 7 men for $150. The church was built on the same rock where the slaves used to worship. The church was a target during the atrocious Jim Crow era and was burned twice. But they kept rebuilding on the same site, on the same rock, and by the same stretch of creek. Today's quaint white block building is a 21st century renovation, complete with an indoor baptistry and stained glass windows. The original 1891 deed hangs in a frame by the front door. Bless her heart. She's trying to keep up. The 124 acres of hilly and heavily wooded land around that church we just left also adjoins an established neighborhood. The owner of that land, a member of the Hunter family, had put the property on the market. An investor had made an offer, but a sale was contingent upon the county approving their proposed development of the land. The developer wanted to put a 64-lot residential subdivision on that land. To meet minimum slope requirements as a secondary access for emergency vehicles, their only option was Timber Hills Road. Well, Timber Hills residents showed up in droves to attend the Sumner County Commission's meeting over the matter. As I drive up their 1-mile-long road, take a listen to what they had to say at that meeting while you enjoy the scenery.
I live in Timber Hills Drive. We moved there in 1984.
My spouse and I fell in love with this dead-end street 8 years ago.
So my wife, 2 sons, and I have lived on Timber Hills for the past 17 years.
We have lived on Timber Hills Drive for 18 years. We've lived there for nearly a decade.
We have lived there for almost 9 years, and we're very intentional in choosing this street to raise a family.
We are the newbies on the block, having been there 4 years.
I've owned property on Timber Hills Road for 28 years.
And I've been there 19 years, and my wife's parents lived there. We raised 2 boys there.
We ended up buying the 25 acres on top of the ridge of Timber Hills Drive. And it's a little bit of a slice of heaven. We own that 25 acres, and we left the subdivision to come to this piece of serenity.
It's like Gatlinburg. We do have a condo in Gatlinburg, but this street is more like Gatlinburg than anywhere.
I drove it. I've never driven up Timber Hills. I've seen it ever since we moved out here, just never driven up it. So I drove up it the other day, and my wife and I. And I had no idea. Huge trees, rocky bluffs everywhere. You can see it. It reminded me of a mountain drive, up somewhere above Gatlinburg. That's what it reminded me.
Timber Hills, as its name suggests, is a 1-mile dead-end road with 34 homes. Each home is situated on a minimum of 3-acre wooded lots. The hills and curves on this road are part of what makes this community a unique, quiet slice of paradise. A true rarity, especially in Henderson.
We bought our house online. When we got here, it was nighttime, and when I woke up the next morning, I couldn't believe my eyes. It was probably the most beautiful place I've ever been.
We're the ones who moved to this quiet dead-end road because of its uniqueness and solitude, and we're the ones who will have to live with the impact of this proposed development for decades to come.
What I want to address tonight is the traffic and particularly the safety concerns if this development is to feed traffic from the development onto Timber Hills Drive.
When I first moved out there, I could get from my house to Gallatin Road in no time flat, but I can't anymore. In fact, there are times when I dread to get out of my lot there on Timber Hills. I'd rather stay home because there's so much traffic.
Growing up in Shackle, I lived there all my life. I come from the Shackle Island that had gravel roads, the feed mill, the Worsham store, and the historic church and a country school. That was all we had.
As serene as our dead-end street is, I do dread the day that my 2 children will have to make a left turn onto New Shackle to go to school. The thought of intentionally adding more volume and making the traffic worse than it already is seems negligent.
That area has now become a crossroads for 4 growing and booming communities: Goodlettsville, Gallatin, White House, and Hendersonville. We're right there across the middle, and cars come through there every day, and it's not getting any better.
So we got there, we drove up and drove back down. It was 2:45 when we got back down to New Shackle Island. The traffic was backed up from Old Drakes Creek Road all the way down around the bend. 1 car was making a left-hand turn onto Old Drakes Creek, and that backed that traffic up all the way back.
The Shackle Island community is a very historic community. There are people that have lived there since before statehood, that have lived back there in the frontier days, families that come down through there. And the people that have moved there have joined us in their love for that community.
Until that road is widened all the way down, nothing's going to change. It just doesn't make sense to pile more cars and more cars in the same area. I mean, there's still building going on in Somerset Downs, Durham Farms. There's going to be a new one started at Pennington Farms. Thank God that's only going to be about 10 homes. But you go up Tyree Springs, they're building up, it looks like 1,000 up there. And at least half those people are going to come down Tyree Springs, New Hope Road.
We love the area that we live in, and we would like to see it maintain some semblance of what we grew up with, or what we moved to, or what we enjoy.
We would prefer to see nothing on this property. The traffic, the 800-pound gorilla in the room, no matter which way you go, Newtown Hollow, Long Hollow, Timber Hills, that traffic is just relentless.
I have a letter in my hand here from Ricky Skaggs and Sharon White Skaggs. They're our neighbors that live on New Shackle Island Road, not far from the entrance of Timber Hills Road. I will read this letter. I'm sorry that we could not attend this very important meeting tonight. Sharon and I had a prior commitment that we had given our word to attend, but I do want to say that we are very concerned about the 100-acre, 64-house community called Hunter Ridge. We have lived on New Shackle Island Road going on 25 years now, and every year the traffic grows more and more. With a new community of 64 more houses, that could possibly be 128 more cars on an already congested New Shackle Island Road. There were so many accidents on that road in 2024, counting my wife as one of the many. Traffic is a real issue for all of our neighbors. If you are driving to work or taking your kids to school, it's a dangerous road already. Sharon and I have read the concerns of the Timber Hills community, and we agree with them. We don't believe the existing infrastructure could handle the Hunter Ridge development. If we could, we would vote no. Ricky and Sharon Skaggs. Thank you.
And in addition to all of them, another Hunter family member who lived down the road from here spoke up to express his disagreement with this development as well. So this development was turned down by the county commission meeting, and so the development will not happen. So at least this little neighborhood has dodged the bullet. Now, once upon a time, I would have turned left up here on Drake Street Road just to drive by the fields full of cattle. Not no more. Matter of fact, I don't even go there. I don't want to get mixed up in that mess. And by the way, this and other pre-existing roads have not been upgraded in 20 years, even after thousands of people have moved in.
You could have gone 3 times.
Well, because of the direction I'm traveling, I can't see it, but you can. Take a look out the right window over here, look up on that hill, and that's where Ricky Skaggs lives. Now, overdevelopment issues shown here aren't unique to just this area. Here are some numbers. No, I'm not going to read them to you. Yes, the growth of White House, Gallatin, and Hendersonville, and the rest of these Sumner County communities do affect the Shackle Island area to some degree. Mainly because the most expensive infrastructure improvements, roads, aren't keeping pace with growth. Such is the case throughout Middle Tennessee. Centered mainly around Nashville, in the past 20 years, population in this area increased to where it's become the 10th fastest growing metropolitan area in the United States. With that, Nashville's traffic is now the 5th worst among all other metro areas in the U.S. Located 30 miles south of Nashville, I think it's Murfreesboro's fault. After all, they had to be the overachievers by being one of the country's fastest growing cities in the past 30 years. Oh, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Wilson County's communities 20 to 30 miles east of Nashville, like Mount Juliet and Lebanon. They have become boom towns these past 15 years. 30 to 40 miles west in Dixon County, well, I envy them. Yeah, none of this over here on the right was there before. Neither was the shopping center I'm fixing to go through. I remember when it was just woods and hills and pasture land. Gonna pop through here and give me a gut bomb from Chick-fil-A. I thought about cutting this part of the video out. However, as you might recall, the main purpose of this trip was for me to go get breakfast. Coming to Chick-fil-A also allows me to engage with some very nice people, which is counter to all the meanness I see every day. Yes, people have gotten plain mean in the past 5 or so years. I know you all have noticed it too because I've heard other people mention it. With what's going on these days in politics, increased crime rates, mass shootings, protests in the streets during COVID, destruction of monuments, calls to defund the police, the rapid increase in the use of illegal drugs, and many other factors, our society's levels of mutual respect, caring, and empathy have greatly diminished. Heck, just today, the news covered a story on a Hendersonville shooting where an 18-year-old boy shot and killed a 16-year-old boy due to an argument over whose turn it was to play a video game. I also think our society's divisiveness is partly stemmed from our prolific reliance on the internet and social media in the past 15 to 20 years. So as I get my breakfast, I'll enjoy the nice people there. I think they're worth sharing with you. Hey there. Good. First time I've been here since you've redone again.
Oh yeah. What's the name on the order?
Earl.
Earl, I got you. Okay.
Sausage burrito.
Yeah.
Orange juice and a small coffee.
Absolutely. Juice and small coffee. Any cream or sugar for you?
No.
All right. Any sauce?
Yeah, some salsa.
Yeah. Okay. We are good to go. The next person is going to take payment, sir.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
Have a good evening.
Alrighty then. Alright.
There you go.
Thank you very much.
Have a good day.
A little bit more on that topic, and then I'll drop it. We certainly see how people's attitudes have changed where we see each other the most. On the roads. Traffic has become a daily battleground of rude, inconsiderate, and selfish people. Sadly, our news now brings stories of road rage shootings and vehicle abductions on a daily basis. So, how do I think one should drive to avoid conflicts with aggressive drivers? Drive defensively, not offensively. Sit back. Relax while simply watching out for yourself by watching others. Even if you're late, the risk of getting into an accident or, at worst, getting shot by a pissed-off driver is not worth it. No, I'll be taking that home to eat it. Again, this used to be pasture land, woods, farms, and up here on the left is where there once was a giant old tree. I have this thing about trees. I've seen a few of them. I'll put a couple of pictures of those up there. Then I'll talk about this one. Went to the one, it was at Yosemite National Park, a giant sequoia.
Niks van jou maken foto. Kom op de boom zitten of zo. Doe die man maar weg. Straks de boot bellen.
I've been to the one in McMinnville, Tennessee. It's called the Birthing Tree, an expansive old oak tree. But this one right here was, in Hendersonville, and it was actually saved from being taken down for development. However, years later, a thunderstorm took it down. Right here by the Celebration of Life Church. Right there. That tree was like, I guess, 250 years old, and it started suffering some kind of infection, I guess, in its trunk and its root system, beginning back in the 40s. And then it became hollow up inside the trunk. I've actually kind of crawled up inside that one time a long time ago. I never got any of my own pictures of the tree. I don't know why I didn't. But the day it went down was a sad one for a lot of folks because it was very much a part of the history of Hendersonville. And it'd been here since before statehood, so there's that. Looks like the clouds are trying to clear out. As you probably surmised, I'm in Hendersonville now. I lived here for 20 years before moving to my rural area that I live now. This was as far as I want to get into Hendersonville anymore because the traffic sucks. As you saw earlier coming down New Shackle Island Road, Hendersonville is still growing in its northern flanks. It can't grow any further south because of Old Hickory Lake. There's an irony about the growth I'm seeing here, since all of the new developments, which were all farmland up until very recently, present a facade of having some relationship to nature and life in the country. Nearly all the developments are named as such. We've already seen the upcoming Pennington Farms development, although it's really away from any cities, at least for now. In my earlier satellite view of growth blossoming on Old Drakes Creek Road, there are Drakes Creek and Autumn Creek subdivisions, obviously deriving their names from nearby Drakes Creek, even though neither are actually next to the creek, that I can tell. Durham Farms is no longer a farm, but it does have a farmhouse. So if you live in that community, while on your way home, you can call your wife at the townhouse and tell her, honey, I'm stopping by the farmhouse to work out and then drink a non-fat iced caramel macchiato out by the pool. Other places back up their farm moniker by keeping the former farm's barn at the entrance, such as this place here going up in White House. I guess the barn maintains that country life charm, even after passing it to get to your cookie cutter house or condo. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not bashing that naming trend. I happen to like farmhouses, and I love seeing old barns. What I find ironic is that folks wanting to get out of the city and into the country are moving to where developers are building mini cities out in the country, while being named as things in the country that they not really are. All the while, these new seekers of the rural life must traverse 2-lane country roads that aren't capable of handling 1,000 more cars during a morning commute. Now, the developments that I've mentioned so far are just a few of the dozens upon dozens that are springing up all over Sumner County, or the hundreds upon hundreds that are springing up all over Middle Tennessee. Okay, I'm on Center Point Road now. While you enjoy what you probably hope to be some uninterrupted scenery, I'm going to babble some more about Hendersonville's unique deer overpopulation problem. As I'd alluded to earlier, Hendersonville's entire southern city limits borders Old Hickory Lake. White-tailed deer lives in Hendersonville, thriving mostly in undeveloped pasture and wooded areas surrounded by neighborhoods and businesses. Their options to migrate to other areas is impeded by the lake to the south and the hustle and bustle throughout Hendersonville proper to the north. The deer population continues to grow, but without any obvious other places to go. Some that do try migrating north, east, or west get hit and killed by vehicles. Now, typical deer population in Sumner County is about 31 deer per square mile, including where I live. However, areas in Hendersonville more than double that, with more than 80 deer per square mile. Therefore, beginning in 2024, the city government, along with the USDA, have organized monthly meetings of a deer monitoring and control committee. It's a road up this way I've always wondered about. Why? Because it's called Wonder Valley Road. I mean, what a cool name for a road is that? Wonder Valley Road. Some actions they have considered to mitigate the deer problem are to impose fines for feeding deer within the city limits, along with a phone number to report it. Other options considered are the use of deterrent chemicals, devices such as bang pistols, motion-activated sprinklers, fencing, and, at worst case, selective hunting permit within the city limits that's outside of normal hunting season. So up in this territory, surrounded by hills with these huge houses on them, it's like a competition. I don't even know what these houses cost or how big they are. I'll probably look that up and put that in a video here someplace. I don't know, but it's like everybody's competing to have the biggest house on the highest hill. And they are definitely gorgeous. Got these long meandering concrete driveways. Look like they're thousands of feet long to get to their house. A bit longer than my driveway. I got a little pipsqueak 500-foot gravel driveway. Yeah, I took the long way home for my breakfast run. I'm enjoying the scenery. Thought I would share it with you. There it is. Wonder Valley Road. On a somber note, I'll share the story about the disappearance of a 15-year-old named Sebastian Rogers, an autistic boy who disappeared on February 26, 2024, from a neighborhood a quarter mile from the Long Hollow Pike intersection I will cross here in a minute. I distinctly remember that news. It had tugged at my heartstrings to the point of tears. The initial search for him was aggressive and far-reaching. In the first week, several agencies, including Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, Tennessee Highway Patrol, Nashville Fire Department, City of Hendersonville's First Responders, Sumner County Sheriff's Office, Shackle Island's Volunteer Fire Department, and many hundreds of volunteers assisted in the search for the teen. Helicopters, boats, dive teams, underwater rovers, drones, canines, and horses were all utilized in the search efforts. Searchers walked many thousands of miles crisscrossing throughout the locally harsh, heavily wooded terrain during the search. People were asked to scour their own properties to check crawl spaces, basements, sheds, barns, wooded areas, any place that a scared autistic boy might hide. The Sumner County Sheriff's Office Chief Deputy said,
I can't recall off the top of my head when the last search like this was. Obviously, this one is exponentially more important, being a child who does have autism.
I suspect that from the national news coverage, outsiders like the United Cajun Navy and Dog the Bounty Hunters team came here to help weeks and even months later. Dwayne Dog Chapman, the celebrity bounty hunter, has since announced a $250,000 reward for information leading up to the finding of Sebastian Rogers. Okay, it's a cockamamie way to get into a road. This one is called, you thought Wonder Valley Road was good. This is Happy Valley Road. So all these people that live along here are happy. And it's a nice little drive. There's not much else I can add to my drive here. I just, at this point, just enjoy the scenery. Besides, at this point, you've no doubt grown weary from listening to me flap my lips. That's one steep driveway up to that house on the hill. I wonder if they have a heated driveway. I didn't know that was a thing until recently. Actually, that driveway's steep grade back there pales in comparison to many others here as this road drops down into an area called the Hollows. The same goes after I turn right onto Hogan's Branch up ahead. The old Toyota Land Cruiser for sale. I've already looked at it. It's old. They want $12,000 for it. Along in here on this last stretch of Happy Valley Drive, I'll be turning back onto Hogan's Branch, which was what I was on earlier. And I've always loved this. I try to take this drive as often as I can, but I'm not in a hurry because it's almost like being in a national park. I'll be turning onto my road here in a minute. All right, well, I'm going to end this. There's no grand finale to it. There's a few things there I found interesting. I'm nosy when it comes to history, local history. I think it's cool to look into it. And I did that not only for my own curiosity, but to make this video. So maybe you find it interesting too. And I appreciate you watching. So I'm going to shut you down now. Thank you very much for watching.